Hey guys, today I'm going to make a video on how I make my individual cups for small nymphs, like you saw in my blow dart video yesterday about I showed the boxer cup. So what I start with is these. They're Jello shot glasses. They're about 2.5 ounces. I found them at my local party store. They were nice and cheap, and my favorite part is that these ones are taller than the usual shot glasses that I find. The ones that I usually find are wide and shallow, but these ones are nice and tall, which are good for molting mantis. So, this pack comes with 40, and for today I'm just going to make the one enclosure. So, you have your cup. The first thing I always start with is ventilation. I'm going to take my X-Acto knife, and I'm going to cut a window in the side of the cup. Goes basically to the bottom of the cup to just before the top of the cup. Doesn't have to be too big, it's just to let air in. Being a little irregular is okay. It's not my favorite thing, but it's livable. You can see the hole is about there. That's just a small window in the cup. And for the lid, I like to remove this entire, basically this entire inner circle, which I'm going to do here. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. I wish it was, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Try to avoid these little bits hanging off the side. Just in case little mantis hurt themselves on there. I don't think it would happen, but better safe than sorry. Alright. For the cover, I have this. It's standard window replacement screen. This one is more like, sometimes you'll find it that it's like metal. It'll bend. It's very solid. I don't like using that. But this one is more of a fabric. You can see that when I fold it, it doesn't stay folded. It doesn't bend like the metal one does. But they're both supposedly of the same material. So just be careful which one you get from the hardware store. So we need a window for this one. I'm just gonna pre-fold it over. Then I'm going to note which square I need to cut from. I'm going to take it's better to have too much than not enough. Because if you have too much, you can trim off the excess. You have not enough, the entire piece is useless. Well, maybe not useless. You might be able to make another enclosure for the new piece, but you don't want to have to do all that. So you have your first piece for the window. I put it inside the cup. As you can see, it goes all the way over to the side. The window ends here, but it goes all the way over here. The window ends here, and it still sticks out this way. That's perfect. It gives us a lot of room to glue it to the cup. And as you can see, it sticks out the top. That's fine. We'll just, remove the excess. For this, it's a little bit different. Normally, you just want to cover the hole, but I find that little nymphs can't grasp onto the plastic around the outside well enough that I usually want to cover the whole inside with screen, even though I only need to cover just the one hole. So I cut a piece big enough to fit the whole thing. Now, take your glue gun Mine's a hot glue gun. Most people don't recommend a hot glue gun, but I haven't had problems with it so far. And you just, holding the screen in place, reach in there, glue it down. Oh, I should have let this heat up more before actually gluing. Oh well. So I start with just gluing the bottom part. I let that dry and then do the rest of the sides all at once. This one doesn't want to stick. This glue gun's getting old. If you need to, you can reach in there with a skewer or something and pat it down to make sure it actually sticks to the cut instead of pulling out. That sounded gross. Now, for the lid, this was easier. I just glue all the way around here, all at once, and stick this on top. I just give it a quick, pat down. You don't want to touch it for too long, otherwise you just get molten glue stuck to your fingers, and that's probably the worst experience of life. It's nothing quite as bad as having your finger burn, and you want to pull it away from the burn, but the burn just follows you. It just comes with you everywhere. It sucks. Now while we wait for that to dry, this part here should be dried at the bottom, so we can go in, and because it's so much wider than the window, you'll need 2 sets of glue on the sides, one right next to the actual cut and one further in. I do this so that if I just glued further away from the cut, then you'd have this push in a lot. It'd be very flexible. I want it to be nice and tight, so I glue right next to the window. But if you only glue right next to the window, then this part actually becomes, it flops around and little things can get behind there, which, I don't know, it could cause trouble. They could get caught behind there. I've never had it happen, but I don't want to ever have it to happen, so I do it this way. Basically what I do is I just lightly press the trigger to get some glue on there, and then I use the tip of the gun to actually push it down and connect the screen to the cup. This side's not so bad. It doesn't actually have, doesn't go so far in, so you won't need 2 sets there. And glue along the top. Might have cut the window a little too high. This glue might interfere with the lid, but it's not a big deal. And glue the inside. So, there's that. We'll let that dry. We've got this now. This is nice and dry. I test it every time. I push lightly on here with a little bit more force than a small Mantis would be able to, just in case. I don't think a small Mantis weighs nearly as much as you push on this lightly, but it's always nice to know. Seems like a good, perfect seal. Next, we just want to get rid of these corners that are sticking out beyond the edge. Just cut them. So you'll have something like this. You got the glue on the inside, some flaps out here. The fruit flies will be able to crawl up in between here and the actual lid, but I've never had a Mantis do it, and they always end up catching the fruit flies anyway, so it's not a big deal. Then you've got the lid. You'll notice all these little strings They are a very, very big annoyance of mine. They happen all the time. Don't know how to stop them from happening. Just, you know, give it a rub down and pluck them out, make sure there's none left. And then remove the excess from the top. Now, some nymphs aren't able to hold on to the smooth plastic of the wall here. So what I do is I have this little sandpaper thing that went on an automated sander in the garage, and I just sand the walls. You don't need to destroy them, you know, just enough that the little nymphs can grip the walls easier. I leave a little patch of the wall clear so that when I look into the cup I actually have like a window. You can see that I've sanded basically from here to here, which leaves me this to look through. You know, get rid of the dust, just in case there is dust. There usually is. And this is when I start to add furniture. I've got a couple things. I've got dowels from the art section at Walmart. I have willow reeds. You know, they're very like bamboo. These ones are actually treated on the outside. They have a coating. So there's two ways you can make these more grippable to little nymphs. I like to cut them in half. So I take this. How long will I need? Let's see, I find out how long I'll need. I cut off that amount. So you've got this, and this is all smooth here. Nymphs might have a hard time with that. So what I do is I cut it open, cut it right in half. And the insides are still normal wood. They can grip onto these easy. And I also have bamboo skewers, like a lot of people suggest to use for transferring nymphs or giving honey, stuff like that. So I'll line the walls here with sticks and stuff, and I'll also add a small piece of sponge, just you know, normal sponge. And I'm just gonna cut a really, really thin slice so we can give the mantis the most room of the cup. And cut off the top. Make sure it'll fit. And then I use hot glue. I know it seems a little redundant to hot glue something over where I've already sanded the walls, but you know, the typical person who's got to make 100 of these in a day, maybe when they have an ooth hatch, might not want to make each one very complicated. Sanding the walls might be enough for them. So by all means, if you don't want to continue, sanding the walls should be enough to give them grip on the wall, and they'll basically, you know, nymphs will always hang from the ceiling of the cup. I just like to spoil mine, so it's not a big deal. These are too long. So I'll take my willow reeds and I'll trim them down because they were actually too tall. And check again. These ones will work. I'll also hot glue them, but right next to the sponge. There's a little bit extra glue sticking out there, so I'm going to add some cut up bamboo skewer. If they don't all stick, it's not a big deal. You just take away the part that didn't stick. So as you can see, got this wall here. The sponge serves a dual purpose. They can climb on it very easily, and it actually holds water droplets for a lot longer. Whereas on these sticks here, water droplets will typically just flow down into the paper towel that you'll have as substrate. But on the sponge, they'll actually hold it, and I notice a lot of my nymphs will actually go to the sponge for their drink in the morning. So you've got the sticks for climbing, the sponge for climbing and drinking, and you still have some available sanded wall over here, which they will also be able to climb on. Now I'm going to use the dowel to make a diagonal perch for them to climb up on. Like that. Or maybe like that, so I don't cover the sponge. So we need about that long. Use the scissors to cut it. And I just set it up. Like that. And then I just add hot glue to the top, up here. Now basically when that dries, the bottom will still be able to flip around, but you know, a little mantis that's maybe 2 millimeters long isn't going to have the strength to push that around. So that's my nymph cup. Where'd the lid go? There's the lid. Now the problem with this window here is that the cup becomes very easy to push down, like that. Bends very easily. So you always want, when you put the lid on, you want to start with the screen side, so that the rest of it actually has the strength to hold on to the lid pushing down. And I think this dowel is too long. No, it's not. I'm just crazy. So yeah, when that dries, I'll put the lid on. It'll look something like this on the outside. And you'll have the furniture on the inside. And just a tiny piece of paper towel. Make sure you cover the whole bottom for a substrate. That'll hold moisture, make it nice and humid in there. Even though some of you and I have a humidifier going, which keeps the humidity really high. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will be saying I spoil my little nymphs, but they love it. And I don't have so many that taking the time to make one is a waste at all. Here's one of my boxers. You can see he's in a very similar cup. You got the sponge on the wall back here. You got a bunch of little sticks. They were a different kind of stick. They weren't the actual willow reed. I don't have any more of those though. And I've got the one diagonal stick. This little guy's L4, I think. But yeah, you can see it's a huge space for them. They'll be able to stand there for quite a while yet. I also have my towels in these. See, it's very similar. Just I used screen this time because I had to make 15 of these for the towels. So instead of hot gluing a bunch of the willow reeds cut in half, I just used more of the screen, which is very easy for them to grab onto. But I do still have the sponge. The sponge is important because they can drink from it. Oh, this little guy just molted. How about that? I'll be moving these guys out when they're L4 into the bigger 20-ounce containers, maybe 16-ounce containers, which I will brief you all on in the next video. Thanks for your time.